Of hundreds of professional development sessions, including trainings hosted at her local station, 9 Network in St. Louis. One more thing I think you should know about Patricia. She's the mother of 5 boys. We tend to think of parents and teachers as occupying separate spheres of the learning ecosystem, when in fact, their hopes, concerns, and needs overlap. We're fortunate to conclude today's session with Patricia's unique perspective on the intersection of teaching, parenting, and PBS stations. Please welcome Patricia. Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I am Patricia Brown, and there are a few things you should know about me. First, you should know that I believe digital media can change how people interact with the world. In my role as an educator, I've seen this firsthand, how PBS content and digital media help students come alive. You should know that I'm an educator of color, a technology integration coach in an affluent, mostly white school district in a St. Louis suburb. I work with teachers in grades K through 4 to find ways they can use digital media in their classrooms. You should know that, as Sarah mentioned, I am the mother of 5 boys between the ages of 3 and 16. And you should also know that I live in Ferguson, Missouri. You probably know of Ferguson because that was where Michael Brown, an unarmed black teenager, was killed by a police officer. And we all know that these events surrounding his killing sparked tension and debate about the relationship between law enforcement and the citizens they are supposed to protect and serve. This dialogue is ongoing and is happening in our cities, in our schools, and most importantly, our homes. And from my vantage point as an educator, as a parent, and as a member of this community, I can see very clearly how that conversation is unfolding in all of these spaces. How many of you are parents? So at my house, my husband and I have talks with our kids that I'm sure are similar to yours. They go something like, be kind, work hard, respect others. Education is the key. And as for me, as the only female in a male-dominated household, it's a daily reminder to put the toilet seat down and stop running through the house. But as parents of African-American males, my husband and I have additional talks with our kids. We talk about the systematic racism that exists in this country that makes it harder for them to succeed just because of their skin color. We teach them that they have to work twice as hard and be twice as good for a chance at the same opportunities as others who don't look like them. We teach them to avoid violence and instead use their voice to stand up for themselves as well as others. And we encourage them to always take the high road and make good choices, no matter how exhausting it may feel, because they may not get a second chance. Most importantly, we teach them that any encounter that they have with law enforcement or other authoritative figures could be potentially threatening. Yet, we teach them they must always respectfully comply, no matter what, because we want them to come home to us. These are not easy conversations to have, and we know that as our sons get older, our talks about race will be more frequent and more specific. At the school where I teach, we were having some of these conversations too, but they weren't as direct and they weren't as deep. And that's not because matters of race weren't affecting our students. In addition to St. Louis being in the spotlight for Ferguson, our district made national news when the high school and middle school students walked out to protest what they felt was unfair disciplinary treatment of black students. In our elementary school, students held several peaceful protests in support of a crossing guard who had racial slurs yelled at her by a motorist. Several other incidents caused rising tensions within the school and community, mainly because of the apprehension to talk about and directly address these racially motivated events and how they created trauma and arrests for students and families of color. This was personal for me. As a black educator who was raising 5 boys in a predominantly white, wealthy school district, I needed people to have these very real, authentic, and relevant conversations, no matter how uncomfortable or difficult. I knew others felt the same way. A small group of parents and teachers from my school recognized that we had to have an honest dialogue on how to talk about race with our kids, but we didn't know where to start. That's where 9 Network came in. I knew that they had covered the events surrounding Ferguson with town hall meetings that opened conversation. And I remembered that they had aired a documentary called The Talk, Race in America, that was especially relevant for our demographic. So I suggested that we watch the documentary because I knew it would give a broad range of perspectives and that coming from 9 Network, people would recognize it as content they could trust. After watching the film, we gathered at the home of one of our parents, asking our families to come with questions, come with stories, come with answers, but most importantly, come with an open heart. We talked with each other and came away with a better understanding of a complex issue that was close to all of us and was affecting all of our children in every part of their lives. One parent said, "It was good for my soul to be with other parents and to share our stories, experiences, building awareness, hope, and ideas for action. Remember when I said I believe digital media can change how people interact with the world? I saw this firsthand in my own community. I believe media can amplify the voices of marginalized individuals. I believe it can foster dialogue that's sometimes uncomfortable but absolutely critical. I believe it can do this in classrooms and homes across the country, bringing people together around the events that are happening in their communities. As parents, teachers, and neighbors, we have to know we have a trusted resource we can draw from and sources of support we can turn to for guidance. PBS stations have the power to be that resource, sparking conversations that propel change, giving all of us a voice as we seek a hopeful future for our children. Thank you.